Welcome back. The royal visit of Elizabeth is in full swing. North of Adelaide, of course, the city of Elizabeth, built in the 50s and 60s, named after Queen Elizabeth. And we're out there at the skate park at the moment, Jane.
And as you can just see live on your screen now, His Royal Highness has just been presented with a skateboard by the Mayor of Playford. Playford is the council area that Elizabeth sits in. And that skateboard, I'm not sure, I can't quite see, but I think it's got George written on the underside.
So it's not really for William.
So I don't know, I'm just trying to pick up. Perhaps Rosanna Mangiarelli can see for us from where you are, Rosanna?
Or if my eyes aren't failing me, Jane, it does look like it says George in very fancy writing, green beneath, and the Duke is clutching it with his dear life. I think he's probably a bit frightened that they might get him to have a little whiz around the skate bowl. But how fantastic has it been? They enjoyed watching all these kids whiz around, and they've done a fantastic job. None of them fell off, which is the most important thing. But look at him clutching onto that skateboard, I reckon. Look, and I reckon Kate's telling him now, get down there. And he's sort of shaking his head.
Will he or won't he? That's the question.
Well, I reckon she's pretty keen, but he's saying, oh, look, we better get into the car. I reckon he's trying to avoid it.
Wonder what the Royal
but I guess you would.
Say.
Probably not a good idea, John. We wouldn't want any serious injury. Goodness gracious, they've got a little bit of their tour left.
They certainly have. After this, Rosanna, they'll be going over by car, I gather, to the Playford Civic Centre for a luncheon. Has the display in the skate park finished, do you think?
Oh, I reckon it has. Look, the kids are just sort of sitting on their scooters and their bikes, and they look like they will be wrapping up here because obviously it's been a big afternoon and they've sort of spent a little bit too much time here, although it's only clicked over to the afternoon, so I don't know what I'm talking about. But so they will be heading over, I dare say, and maybe we won't get to see the Duke in the skate ball as we all hoped. Yeah, no, there you go. They look like they're leaving, and I'm sure they'll meet and greet the skaters who have done a fantastic job on their bikes and on their scooters as well. So it might be a little goodbye here and straight to the Civic Centre.
Plenty of speculation that he was going to jump on the skateboard and do a lap.
Well, there is still time. He could still throw it down, leap aboard,
well, there is. Oh,
skate into the car.
Hang on a sec, Jane.
Is there a royal helmet?
Hang on a sec, he's just... Yeah, no, there isn't. They've just actually handed the skateboard over to an official, so it looks like we're not going to get to see William on his skateboard, unfortunately. But I'm sure it'll be one for George to keep back home, and once he gets a bit older, he'll be rolling up and down the hills back home.
They should have perhaps given them some wrist guards and knee pads as well, or I dare say Kate and Will be able to invest in that, because when you're learning, I think it's important to protect your joints, isn't it? You're an old skateboarder.
Yes, well, I've got the bruises and the scars to prove it. I didn't have any protective gear when I was doing. That's the reason I've got the marks all over me. But yeah, these days they wear the knee pads and the elbow pads and certainly a helmet. We didn't go anywhere near that back then. It would explain some of my condition.
So, Rosanna, they're still taking a lot of time, aren't they, to speak to these young bike riders and performers who've been there at the skate park?
You know, and what a moment it is for these kids, goodness gracious. And talking about this protective gear, they're only wearing helmets. And some of the manoeuvres they did out here, if I can use their language, it was pretty sick and pretty bad in some parts. Bad is good, so don't get me wrong here. But no, look, an exciting time. All, you know, a bunch of young lads who probably spend at least, you know, an hour or two every day here anyway. So it's like home to them, and they really have put on a great display for the Duke and Duchess, who are going along, shaking hands, having a little chat, knowing that time isn't on their side. They need to be at the Civic Centre, so they do need to get a move on. But as I say, you know, they have extended their stay here at the Northern Sound System. Obviously, just so impressed with the work they do here for the community of Elizabeth and surrounding suburbs. And you can hear the cheers. Here they go, talking to a few members of the public as well. There looks like an official party there.
Rosanna, this is day 17. This is day 17 on this tour, and they're still engaging, happy to be there and happy to talk. As you say, they're way over time, but happy to meet the people and spend some time with those that are putting on the shows.
Yeah, this is the thing, John. They have put in such an enormous effort, and this is what we're loving about the Royals at the moment, and really invigorating the Royals as well, because they are investing the time and it's paying off for them. It's a fantastic PR exercise, and there are so many generations who are adoring them. You've got the older ones who are always, like barnacles, always going to be royalists, but it's the younger ones who are perhaps a little more sceptical. And some of them even admitted here today that they didn't even know where the UK was and what royals were. So it's taught them a lot, and no doubt the Duke and Duchess will walk away learning a few things themselves.
Do you think that's part of what's become in the 2000s a bit of a cult of celebrity? They don't actually necessarily know much about the monarchy or who or what they are and stand for, but they know they're famous.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there certainly is, Jane, a bit of celebrity about it. We're always watching what Kate's wearing, the designers, the shoes and all of that, and we've spoken about all of that this morning, and there is a celebrity status that goes with the Royals, and I think that has been the case for many, many years, and people know that. So I think there is actually a genuine interest. Speaking to some of these kids who were performing here today, and also members of the public, they now know, and if they didn't before, they now know what the Royals stand for and what they do for the Commonwealth, and they're certainly elevating their position here, even though they do have, as you say, this celebrity status.
We can see in those live pictures there, Rosanna, quite a few of those young people the Duke and Duchess have been speaking to are in uniform, either St John or in Navy cadets or Army cadets.
Yeah.
And Paula, when you were chosen, you mentioned earlier that you were chosen as a welcome party for the Queen back in 68, was it?
63.
63. And you were from a high school.
We were school kids.
Yeah.
Yes.
But was there a selection process? Do you remember? We're just watching as the Duke and Duchess...
Not that I can remember. That's the problem. It's so long ago.
Now.
But seriously, I think we were all about the same age and probably about the same height, and there were probably about 20 or 30 of us.
Was it overwhelming?
It was slightly.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we also stood out in the sun. It was a much hotter day. It was February, as I recall.
Now
it was a very hot day.
We've just seen the Duchess break away and go to a barricade and accept a gift. That's the sort of thing that, as her time in royalty progresses, I think she'll be told not to do.
And what a special moment that must be, being able to chat to the Duchess after lining up,
Yes.
Some people on the ground have told us for hours.
Yeah.
Unreal.
And they're just farewelling their hosts at the Northern Sound System, Georgina Pearce, the heavily pregnant Youth Development Officer, and her colleague there, just having final words with them before they get into the car. And they're headed off to the Playford Civic Centre, where there's going to be a reception hosted for them by Governor Rear Admiral Kevin Scarce and Deputy Premier John Rao. This will be attended by some 200 people aged under 25, so continuing this youth theme
that's what
all
it's
the way
about,
through.
connecting with the young ones.
And organisations such as the Country Fire Service, Volunteering SA, Carers SA will be at that luncheon. So again, very much looking at community service.
And we'll have more live coverage from the reception right after the break.